Welcome to our worship service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Janet Bush. I'm the Society's minister. Thank you to everyone in the Great Hall and everyone at home who is helping with our service this morning. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those values and principles move us to remember that in Northampton we inhabit unceded lands of the Pecumtuck and Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history, even as we affirm the legacies and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. We are here to celebrate and support one another, to renew ourselves with hope and gratitude and new resolve. And as I said, it's wonderful to see you all both here and on Zoom. 53 screens so far on Zoom. If you are new or returning after a time away, we have blue cards that look like this if you're in the sanctuary that you can fill out, and there's a link to the chat if you want to fill one out online. That just allows you to allows us to put you on our email contact list. If you're here in person, thank you. Thank you for wearing your masks. And it looks like we're fine in terms of distance from groups of people who didn't come together. So thank you for paying attention to that as well. We ask everyone online to keep your videos off except during the greeting in order to help our technology work as smoothly as possible. And now we'll begin our service.
Light of star, light of candle, light within our souls. Light of love will cheer the world and make the wounded whole. Here in this cold and barren land, an epiphany of hope our souls demand. Light of star, light of candle, light within our souls. Light of love will cheer the world and make the wounded whole. In winter is promise, silence is rest, but now we welcome light, beloved guest. Light of star, light of candle, light within our souls. Light of love will cheer the world and make the wounded whole. In the midst of darkness, light takes the stage. That's how it's been from age to age. Light of star, light of candle, light within our souls. Light of love will cheer the world and make the wounded whole. Light of star, light of candle, light within our souls. Light of love will cheer the world and make the wounded whole.
Good morning. Our opening words come from Susan Cooper. And so the shortest day came and the year died, and everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them, echoing behind us. Listen. All the long echoes sing the same delight, the shortest day. As promise wakens in the sleeping land, they carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace. And now, so do we, here, now, this year, and every year.
And now, after the chalice lighting, we'll sing the winter solstice chant, and we ask you to rise, and you may hum softly while we sing. Please rise and join in saying the chalice lighting as Lyra lights the chalice for us. May this flame we light remind us, each of us can bring light into the world. May it be a symbol that every heart can burn bright with joy and peace. May the wisdom of the ages speak to us through this flame, reminding us each of us can be a blessing to the world. Our story is by Jaron Ashford, and it's called Winter Candle. And this is the part of the story that Jaron Ashford wrote, and then for the second part of the story, we have an addition that Jessica wrote. So, first page, which we probably forgot. Nana Clover checked her list. Turkey in the oven, potatoes peeled, napkins folded, candles just so. How could she have forgotten candles at Jupiter Court without candles? Unheard of. She patted down 3 flights to the super. He asked, candles? He opened a drawer and handed her a lumpy stick of wax. It isn't pretty, but it'll burn. She spread pine cones and leaves around the frumpy candle. By the time her guests had arrived, the centerpiece glowed. 2 weeks later, this is the picture that goes with this. 2 weeks later, 2G was in an uproar. The Havdalah candle's not here, Nat yelled from the closet. Mom sighed. I forgot to buy a new one. Avi's lips quivered. But the stars will be out soon. It's not the end of the world, Grandpa told the Danziger children. Avi, go ask a neighbor for a candle. Up, Avi clattered and rapped on Nana Clover's door. Down he clumped with a bumpy, drooping candle. The brothers shared. That's not a Havdalah candle, Sam groaned. It's not braided. It has only 1 wick. It's not pretty, agreed Grandpa, but a candle is blessed by what it does, not by how it looks. It will shine. And shine it did as Mom raised it high. Grandpa said the blessing to end the Sabbath. Avi held his hands to the light. They'd never had a candle that burned so brightly. 4 mornings later, it was 4D's turn for disaster. "It's broken," Kirsten wailed. Liv came running. 1, 2, 3, 4 candles on the St. Lucia crown, and the 5th one snapped in 2. "Our cousins will be here any minute," said Kirsten. "How can I be St. Lucia with only 4 candles?" Liv started to cry. "No St. Lucia crown, and no special St. Lucia breakfast." "We have plenty of time," Mom reassured them. "Kirsten, go ask a neighbor for another candle." Well, you can guess what happened. Down Kirsten dashed 2 flights to the dancers and came back with the funniest looking candle the girls had ever seen. "Everyone will laugh at me," moped Kirsten. But nobody laughed because Kirsten carried in the teapot and the St. Lucia buns. The funny looking candle gleamed as brightly as the Star of Bethlehem. Winter came, snow fell, presents were exchanged, the new year began. And in 5A, it began with a calamity. "Jamila's got something in her mouth," Dante hollered, "and I don't think it's food." Dad scooped up the baby and stuck his finger in her mouth. A piece of wax, a bit of string. "Oh no," Dante howled. "Jamila ate the faith candle for the Canara." "Go see if the Ericksons have one," his mother, Manai, suggested. But when Dad lit the stubby candle, the flame leaped and danced, inviting the other 6 candles to do the same. Down the stairs, Dante plodded and knocked on the door. "We're lucky we still have this one." A few days later came the biggest snowstorm of the season. Snow blanketed the front steps and made drifts on the windowsills, and just after nightfall, the electricity went out. Flashlight beams flickered in a few windows. In 5B, the newest family at Juniper Court huddled together in the dark. Their clothes were still in suitcases. Their dishes were still in boxes. And Papa was somewhere in the city with a moving truck full of furniture. "How will Papa find us?" Nasreen asked. "The streetlights are out." "He won't find us," cried Farouk. "There's too much snow." "Of course he'll find us," Mama said. "Nasreen, go next door. Ask the neighbors for a candle. We'll put it in the window to light Papa's way." Next door, Dante scratched his head. "I think there's one left from Kwanzaa," he told Nasreen. He returned with a lump of wax that looked like a fairy tale troll. Nasreen's mother lit the candle and set it on the windowsill. "How's Papa going to see one little candle in such a big city?" Farouk asked. But as they watched, the flame shimmered and grew. It glittered on the falling snowflakes until the dark street spun with stars. Many blocks away, Papa slowly steered the big truck through snow-covered streets. What did that sign say? Pine Street? Vine Street? But then he noticed a glow up ahead. Maybe someone there could give him directions. Papa steered right, then left, then right, closer and closer to the glowing light. He turned the corner and gasped. There in front of him, 5 stories up, shone a warm, welcoming light, and he was home. He climbed 3 floors, 4 floors, 5 floors, and then, "Papa's here!" Nasreen and Farouk flew down the hall and into their father's arm. "Come see our new place, Papa," cried Nasreen. "And look, everyone else is coming too." The little apartment filled with neighbors. Dante's family brought chairs and a folding table. Nana Clover made a bed out of blankets for Nasreen and Farouk. Trev brought a small heater. The Erickson girls and their mother made sandwiches, and the Danzigers put a pot of soup to warm on the camping stove. Everyone welcomed Nasreen and Farouk and Mama and Papa to their new home.
Let me come in and share your light, for I'm without a friend tonight. Let me come in and share your light, and a warm place by your fire. It looks so cold and warm within, sheltered from the winter wind. Songs and laughter, friends and kin have brought me to your door. Let me come in and share your light, for I'm without a friend tonight. Let me come in and share your light, and a warm place by your fire.
Open without a shield I stand. My only gift is my empty hand, an empty heart and broken plans. This dark day of the year.
Let me come in and share your light, for I'm without a friend tonight. Let me come in and share your light, and a warm place by your fire. I am without a home today, and soon I will be on my way. I only ask you to let me stay for an hour by your side. Let me come in and share your light, for I'm without a friend tonight. Let me come in and share your light, and a warm place by for an hour by your
And now is the time during the service where we greet each other. So if you're here in person, you're welcome to stand up, turn around, wave to folks. And if you are online, we invite you to greet each other in the chat. You can turn on your cameras and switch to gallery view so you can see each other. You can see Jan's out for a walk. There's been a lot of kudos for the music so far today.
Is anybody on the next screen? Oh, good. Yay, more people. We can see more people today. It's so wonderful to see you in this solstice celebration.
Loving Ellen Kogan.
Great job, Kim, on Zoom Tech 2. Kim Henrishon, give a shout out for Kim Henrishon. This is her first. Yay, Kim.
Well, thank you all for this COVID-style greeting. And you can switch back to turning off your screen. We will fix our screen here, more or less. And it is time for our offering. Sure. For those of you in the hall, just so you know, the offering plate is on this chair down here.
Oh, is that where it's hiding? And you don't have to bring it up now. You can, if you want to put something in the offering plate, you can do it after the service. As most of you know, we share half of our offering contributions, which come in all forms, sometimes a little cash or a check here and online during the week. We share those equally between the society and organizations, and they're up here on the screen, Catholic Charities for their Springfield Afghan refugee relief, the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund for First Nations Development Institutes, which supports Native Indigenous communities all across the country. Arise for Social Justice Springfield, the Movement Voter Project Fund, which is a 503c eligible, nonprofit eligible part that supports research for voters against voter suppression, and Embrace Race, which is a Amherst-based organization that does anti-racist educational work all across the country. So thank you for your generosity. It really makes a difference. And now we will enjoy the offertory music. Meditation is something that was written by Mark Stringer. As the year winds down to its close and we are submerged once again in the seasonal darkness we have come to know so well, we have reason to think back upon the year that was, if only because it will soon be gone. We think back to friends we have made, sorrows we have endured, love we may have found, loneliness we have survived. We think back to the blessings of being forgiven and the gift we offer ourselves when we forgive. We think back to those who listen to us in times of need and the times when perhaps we could have ourselves listened more. We think back to the times when we may have been afraid or uncertain and trudged ahead anyway, and the times when we were compassionate, when we could have been cold. In this season of still growing night, may we see more clearly against the dark backdrop of our living, the true light of our lives, the love we give to each other, and the peace that we nurture in ourselves. Let's take a moment together in silence.
And now we return to our story, where Papa has made it, thanks to the candle in the window, and everyone in the apartment has assembled for a solstice party. Even though the power was out in the whole apartment building, Nasreen, Farouk, Mama, and Papa's apartment glowed, almost like it was daylight. All of the families happily shared food and stories, forgetting that they were surrounded by the darkness and the cold. Farouk was excited to teach the other children a game from his home of Afghanistan, Sangchil Chilbasi, a game where you take a handful of pebbles and you toss one into the air and try to pick as many pebbles as you can up from the floor while the other one is in the air. You can imagine maybe playing that. I think I would be terrible at it. As they started to play, Dante exclaimed, "These pebbles are so small, how can we see them?" "What do you mean?" Kirsten responded. "Look," Dante pointed to the stubby little candle in the window. That's the only light in this whole room, but somehow it feels almost like daylight in here. All of the children looked at the candle, and then at their hands, and then at each other. I don't think candles are supposed to be that bright, said Nat. We used that candle in our house weeks ago, added Avi. When we used it for our Santa Lucia crown, it was the only candle that didn't fully burn, remembered Liv. Monet jumped up. The same thing happened with our Canara. It feels like the first warm spring day, said Liv. It feels like a fuzzy warm blanket, said Nasreen. Meanwhile, the parents started to notice the excitement of the children, and they went over to see what was happening. I was surprised that that little candle was bright enough to guide me to the apartment in the dark of night in this big city. It almost felt like it was pulling me towards you all, remembered Papa. Everyone was silent for a moment, considering the feeling they had when they were near the candle. It's like a whole bowl of light, said Liv, not just like a little candle. Nana got a glimmer in her eye. Trev, is that candle magic? Trev the super smiled at the crowd around him. Well, I can't say for certain, he responded, but this I know. Almost everyone who has ever lived in this apartment has used that candle. For years, they've used it for rituals like Kwanzaa or Diwali or Hanukkah. There was a Unitarian Universalist family that used it in their chalice. A few families have used it to remember loved ones that passed away. And each time I get it back, it doesn't seem to have burned down. And it always feels warm when they hand it back to me. It's almost like it gets stronger with each family that uses it. You know what I think, said Nana. Each of us has a light inside of us. When we share it with others, our light actually gets stronger. It sounds like each family used the candle together for things that really matter to them. And right now, we're all here together adding our own light to the light that the candle gives off. Grandpa repeated something he'd said when the family first took out their candle for Shabbat. A candle is blessed by what it does. Everyone looked over to the candle, which flickered and seemed to get a little brighter. Dante was thoughtful. The candle shines best when we use it where it is most needed. Maybe it's reminding us to use our light for things that really matter. And that evening, each person went home with peace in their hearts and a question to ponder. How can I make other lights brighter? Where is my own light needed? And how can I use my light in ways that matter?
Please rise and join in humming along with us.
Good people of this happy tide, consider well and bear in mind all that God for us can do when we remember our promise true. Now love itself stands in this place with glorious beauty and pleasant grace to welcome us with open heart and raise a joy in every part. Coldest winter draws so near, we turn to joy and take good cheer, remembering our vows so strong. Right raise our voices in this song.
When we first moved to this part of the state, one of the first things I did was get a subscription to the Daily Hampshire Gazette, which most of you know is the local newspaper for Northampton, Amherst, Holyoke, and surrounding towns. Because, of course, it's important to keep up with what's happening locally, but truth be told, I read the paper for the comics. They're just an important part of my morning ritual. So this past Monday, in the first frame of the strip Zits, both mom and son have their elbows on the table. She has her head in her hands, and he, of course, has his phone in his hands. She says, "You know what I really want for Christmas?" Jeremy says, "What?" "One day without the news being so depressing." And then in the final frame, we see Jeremy with his dad. He says, "Good luck getting mom's present this year." You might resonate with that, if not all the time, at least in your darker moments at this dark time of the year when we all long for something to drive the dark away, something to offer us cheer. And Jessica read Susan Cooper's now well-known poem earlier, the beginning of the service, that starts, "The shortest day came and the year died, and everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees and hung their homes with evergreens. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive." So long, long ago, people danced and celebrated to appease the sun, or whatever spirits or gods they believed were in charge of the sun. They didn't know anything about the Earth's rotation or the tilt of the axis that make its north and south poles closer or farther from the sun at different times of the year. And they burned those beseeching fires, hoping to reverse the sun's progressive descent, to end that continuing diminishment of daylight. It's a great word, beseeching. Is that a great word? It's better than whining or begging or pleading, although it means all those things. All of this celebration and beseeching happened year after year, decade after decade, century after century, probably millennia after millennium. Those were times when people believed in what today we'd call magic. And many of those solstice rituals still endure. Some of the holidays that the different families celebrated and that were mentioned in the story had their origins in winter solstice celebrations. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, the celebration of Hanukkah endured in part because people from other cultures were celebrating the festival, the solstice, with festivals of light at that same time of year. And I don't know what the tradition of having a candle at the end of a Shabbat evening comes from. Yeah? But early Christian monks who came to convert the Norse peoples brought with them the story of Lucia, a young girl who was martyred for her beliefs. And the feast of St. Lucia mixes pagan traditions, pagan solstice traditions, with Christianity. And it's still celebrated in Sweden and Norway and the parts of Finland where people speak Swedish. On the longest night of the year, Afghanis, the family in our story were from Afghanistan, and Iranians both participate in an ancient festival called Shab-e-Yalda, which is translated as Night of Birth. And that goes back way before Islam. This ceremony celebrated the triumph of Mithra, the sun god, over darkness, and as they did in ancient times, people still gather on the longest night. One tradition is to perform good deeds, acts of kindness. People eat, drink, read poetry together until way after midnight, and some stay awake all night long to rejoice in the moment when the sun rises, banishing evil. Would that it were so easy. In Japan, people also light bonfires to encourage the sun's return. Apparently, huge bonfires burn on Mount Fuji every year. And there are winter solstice celebrations in the southern hemisphere, too. But obviously, those happen in June. Solstice celebrations can remind us that we all share the same earth, and that all peoples hope that things can get only so dark before things begin to grow brighter again. So how do we drive the dark away? It might be fun to go to a solstice celebration or have one yourselves. Anybody who has a fire pit or who has neighbors who have a fire pit? That's one way to have a solstice celebration or a special solstice meal. It turns out in the Middle East, pomegranates are a special solstice food. Some people may join a sunrise or sunset gathering at the UMass Sunwheel. It's going to be very cold. And you might also think about the story that we told, with its families of different backgrounds and beliefs, sharing the same apartment building, just as people all over the world share the same planet, and sharing the same possibly magic candle, about how the candle's light grew brighter when it was used and shared. We can remind ourselves that each of us has a light in us, a light that, like the candles, grows brighter and stronger when it's used and shared. And each of us can reflect and decide what to do with that light that's inside each of us. And now we're going to have a little solstice ceremony of our own. Jessica and I just need to do a little setting up first.
Thank you for bearing with us while we get set. So, for our bowls of light ritual, we will invite you to come up. And what we have up front are two bowls, and each of you will have a chance, each of you who's here will have a chance to light a candle and add it to the bowls. And as you do, we would love it if you would spend a moment to think about where your light is most needed, how you want to contribute your light, and when have you felt that light grow brighter with others? So when you come up, there'll be lit votive candles in the middle of each of the bowls of sand. Still setting up. And Kim, I wonder if you can spotlight the pianist camera so that everyone can see those bowls. And you'll take a taper, light it from the votive, and put it in the sand. We're going to start with just folks on the tree side, so everybody else can sit tight. We do want to ask you to distance yourself between people. And if you brought something for our underwear tree, for that tradition, you can put it in one of the boxes underneath the tree. If you prefer not to be seen on the camera, if you hand your gift to Julie Kinsman, who will be standing in the aisle, you won't be seen and you just want to walk. Only your hands will be seen when you light your candle. So you just want to walk close to the pews. So take a moment and just think about that light getting brighter, the light that you offer and the light of other people coming together, getting stronger. And I'll fix it too. People who are here can actually see the bowls too. So I'll invite this side to come up first while we listen to some music from Ellen.
Our closing words are a responsive reading, and your words are, "May the light shine." For all the earth's creatures and all people, wherever they live, whatever they believe, whomever they love, may the light shine. For the music of the season, may the light shine. For celebration meals, may the light shine. For warming fires, may the light shine. For a peaceful world, may the light shine. Now let's sing together, "Deck the Halls." Please rise in body or spirit and sing very softly or hum along. What happened to the mic?
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, fa la 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 la. Drove the ancient Yuletide carol, fa la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, fa la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, fa la 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 la. Harmony and merry measure, fa la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, fa la 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 la. Fast away the Yule year passes, fa la 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 la. Hail the new ye lads and lasses, fa la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, fa la la la. Hear the sound of wind and weather, fa la la la.
Go in peace.